That's a very good question. What do we aim for from Copenhagen? Is it just we're aiming to include women in negotiations, or are we aiming to put in place certain policy, law, measure to ensure that the long-term participation of women in this issue and other issues are held to? Anyone?
No, I think this is a very important question which has been asked for. Ultimately, when we say poor and so on, poverty, many cases is related to lack of education opportunities. Lack of education opportunities, again, is related to lack of support services for the woman, the mother. Now, unless, now all the panelists here, you find, we live in two worlds among women. There's no difference between men and women in terms of once you are educated, you are in a particular position. Therefore, I feel that the fundamental requirement in terms of women's empowerment is opportunity for education, good quality education, and also the support services needed for the woman to undertake that kind of education. Having said that, I think as far as the climate change issue is concerned, even there, even if you have got large number of people going to Copenhagen and so on, they have to be articulate, they have to be able to express their views. And I feel this larger question of women's empowerment related to men's enlightenment, these two cannot be separated unless men get enlightened also about the need for gender equity, the societies will remain unequal. So there are social ills which will have to be fought at the local level, politically, socially. But the more important thing is the universal opportunities for education. In my country now we have an Employment Guarantee Act. It's unskilled work. Majority of people, about 30 million every day, are taking advantage of this Employment Guarantee Act. It's a minimum wage, only unskilled work. Majority are women. Majority of women because the skills are not there, the educational opportunities were not there. So in the larger question of gender equity, gender justice, we have to ensure, and things can worse with climate change, drought, more drought, floods, and sea level rise, and so on. So I hope we can look at this problem in its larger dimension.
Malini, you wanted to write into law that all girl children must attend school. If that law is written, how do we ensure that it is adhered to? How do we ensure that the governments actually impose that law, and then how do we ensure that the people follow that?
I think just having a law in place provides a huge relief for a lot of people, because instead of having negotiations in the household about why it's important to send a girl to school and not only the boys, you know, a woman or whoever the advocate is can say, well, it's the law, we just have to. That's why I think it's really important to have good laws. Obviously, the enforcement of the law is much more important.
But aren't the girls needed around the house to help do the work?
This is part of the problem.
To gather the firewood, to collect the water?
This is precisely the problem. Yeah. We are living in a world where women just doing their normal gendered tasks, the division of labor, is becoming more and more difficult for them, partly as a result of climate change. So because of droughts, women are having to travel further to find water, to find firewood. Crops are failing, so food security is becoming a major issue. So women's lot in life, those women who are responsible for these everyday tasks, is becoming difficult. If we then put into we then factor in the issue that it's not just their generation, it's the next generation which is being affected because girl children are not in schooling. And so they're not able to progressively through generations improve their status. That's why I say that the single most important thing that we can do is have girls' education made compulsory. In my country, compulsory, we don't have compulsory education for children. But I think there is a particular reason for why emphasis on girl children is important. I think we should also be a bit clear about what we're actually talking about here, because people keep conflating. Why is it that we're talking about women and sometimes we're talking about women and then we're talking about climate change? Let's be clear. COP15 is about making sure that the world unites to ensure that we starts having a very massive program of emissions reductions. We make sure that those governments that have defaulted since Kyoto in reducing their nationally legally binding emissions do so. We also make sure, and this is my objective as an Indian, that countries like my own, which account for the third largest emitter of greenhouse gases now, do something about it. So Copenhagen is very clearly about one agenda, and that is making sure that actually we enter into a much more serious discussion about greenhouse gas reductions, because the science is clear. In the last 150 years, we have emitted 500 million tons of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. That is what has destabilized our atmosphere to such a degree we're beginning to see climate impacts. The projections are that the remaining, and our atmosphere can only tolerate 1 billion tons. The remaining 500 million tons is now projected to be emitted in the next 50 years. Okay? That's why the urgency has to be on emissions reductions. However, going back to why gender is important, because in the jargon of climate change, we have this thing called co-benefits. We do things, in any case, we have policies to tackle air pollution because there is a co-benefit in terms of human health. There's a co-benefit socially. And we do things in terms of gender policy, gender parity, because there is a benefit to doing them in any case. I'm arguing that there is a particular benefit in educating girl children because it will, in the long term, have climate benefits.
Thank you. First of all, I apologize for coming late. I had to have a prior meeting, and the point I'm making may have already been covered. Mary Robinson. I agree with the importance of the gender analysis and obviously the importance of girls' education and indeed education of all children, and it should be compulsory. It's actually the Universal Declaration envisages that it would be. But I want to come back to the broader framing that Princess Haya opened up. I think that if we take this opportunity, and if particularly women are convinced enough of the opportunity of reframing the whole approach to development through an approach to adaptation and development that opens up with the discussions in Copenhagen. Yes, it's about emissions reductions, and they're absolutely vital, or else we will be destroying the future for our children and grandchildren. But it's also necessary to think again about a fairness and a climate justice. And we have the key points of climate justice, which the Global Humanitarian Forum has been putting forward. But we also have an opportunity for a new paradigm of development, I believe, that's much more respectful, that acknowledges causation, and the causation has consequences, and that actually begins with the point about access to the basics of a green means of development, starting with the opportunity to have the solar cooking, the wind power, the water distillation, and the etc. And I just think that we haven't put enough emphasis on adaptation. There's a good paper on adaptation, which the Global Leadership for Climate Action, I keep forgetting all these names of these various hats, but this is a Club of Madrid and UN Foundation combination, and it was just published the other day. And I think it's a very good paper on adaptation, and I hope people find it either on the website of the UN Foundation or the Club of Madrid. And it's the basis for really talking in a much more dramatic way. Also, the human report, the human impact report of the Global Humanitarian Forum shows us the alarming scale of the crises, the multiple crises, the food security, the fuel crisis, the rich world self-inflicted financial crisis that is penetrating, and the ongoing climate change crisis. So we can't go on business as usual, even on development, and we shouldn't. And so I would like to see the women's movement combining more on a whole new approach to a new paradigm of fairness and adaptation and development. And that's really what the agenda of Copenhagen should be about for us.
Okay, thank you very much.
Good afternoon. I'm so glad to see so many powerful women here, and I just hope that in future humanitarian forums as well as future events at Copenhagen, we're able to see women on every panel. I'm glad to see that there's a man here, but in many of the sessions here at the GHF, as well as in Copenhagen, there's only men, and I hope that we can integrate these discussions more effectively, because I don't think we can educate the girl child without actually providing solutions to climate change in rural areas that are really focused on empowering and freeing women. If women are still expected to be gathering the wood, still held accountable, people need to eat, they need to cook. Unless we're providing solutions like biogas in these areas that free women, free children to actually attend school, I don't think that we can solve these problems together. And so I hope that women, as there have been here and as there are in Copenhagen, these strong women who are actually bringing up these issues in every session, that it's not just a session on women, but women everywhere.